Lots of leagues talking about lots of future plans. The CFL seems to be rather silent. What is going on with the CFL right now? Let's dive down that road. We've heard that the Ontario Hockey League plans to start playing in December, that Quebec around the same time for the junior hockey. The NBA now says around January 1st. Gary Bettman for the NHL said January 1st as a new league starting time. Bubba O'Neill, we have heard, that I've heard anyway, basically nothing from the CFL about anything going forward. Is it or what's going on?
Well, and it's funny that you use the word listen or hear. This is the same thing that I've been saying since, the before Randy Ambrosie actually officially canceled the 2020 season, is the silence coming from this league. This time, now that the season has been canceled, really scares me. And it's getting me into a mindset right now that should we be preparing for a lost season in 2020 and 2021? That has me extremely concerned, because for the first time, I'm downtrodden on the thought that the CFL can survive missing two seasons.
Rick, what do you think?
I think the commissioner has to come out and say, listen, we are adamant in playing a 2021 season. However, when it begins, we're not quite sure. I think he has to be honest, because I don't think anyone knows the answer to that question. To say they're going to have an 18-game season and it's going to start on Canada Day, I mean, that vision is great to have, and that statement, he can make. But I think the CFL is holding out hope, just like maybe the other sports leagues are holding out hope that a vaccine is right around the corner and that will cure a lot of ails. But the fact of the matter is, I think we need some sort of statement to say we're committed to playing in 2021.
Well, I think it's hard for them to say that. And I sympathize with them, but I agree they've got to get out there and do something, because they're doing a couple of nice things, with the CFL fan base type thing and all those kinds of things. But the same conditions that canceled the 2020 seasons exist today. They are a league that doesn't have a lot of cash reserves. They're almost 100% game day, let's say 85% game day dependent, not just for the tickets, but for everything else that goes with game day, including the merchandise that it stimulates. They are working on at least I hope they are. They're supposed to be, the number one thing is to get some kind of bargaining agreement there. But one of the problems with the collective bargaining agreement is you don't know what the economy is going to look like for this league, and it's different than anybody else's league, and that's the problem right now. But I share the concern. A second year like this, not so sure what could happen.
And one of the issues for me, and it's where I started with this about hearing something. I get that the CFL is not the NFL. I don't think anyone thinks that it is. And I don't know. And I think the people at the CFL don't pretend that they're the NFL. And so I get that you maybe don't want to come out with weekly announcements or something. But surely you've got to say something now and then. You've got to remain in the public eye somehow with some sort of something. I mean, the NFL, Steve, before we came on today, you had mentioned the NFL's on at least 3 days a week right now. Don't you have to do something to remain in the public eye and remain relevant and remain part of the discussion, even if it's to almost say nothing? Just say something to be out there.
But that's the thing. If you're not hearing anything from your leadership, which in the eyes of the public are Randy Ambrosie, the commissioner of the league, that's just the way it's dolled up. And I know there's a PA, but most people in the public always look to the commissioner of these leagues. And I've said this before. He's surprisingly quiet to me. And I know that really, in many ways, he can be deemed as a puppet for the ownership of the league, the owners, and he's acting on behalf of them. But at some point, you have to say something. And then there's things that are going to leak out if the commissioner does not speak. There is some word that's out there that there was a vote against CFL 2.0 in a 7-2 vote. It makes me wonder: are the leadership of the franchises losing confidence in the commissioner? Is he leading? Is he being told to muzzle up? You talk about it. There's the NFL. I mean, we heard so much about this bubble city concept that was going to happen in Winnipeg. You know what? I'll say it. I don't think the CFL can survive 2 seasons without playing. So you know what? Maybe the owner has got to take a loss for 1 year and play a shortened season in a bubble with no fans, if there can be no fans that are allowed to be around because of the pandemic. I feel like we need to hear something.
The problem
Rick,
is, okay, go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, is it better to hear? I agree with Bubba, but is it better to say nothing if you don't have anything to say, or to say something just to remain in the public eye and to remain part of the discussion?
I think you have to say something to alleviate some of the fears that we're showing here and some of the concerns that we have for this league, for the players who are in the league, for the people who are employed by the Canadian Football League. I think the commissioner just has to come out and say, you know what, as I said before, we're committed to 2021. What that looks like right now, we're not sure, because we can't be. The fact of the matter is, though, this league has to, and I'd be shocked if it hasn't done so already, started to plan what that looks like. The NFL has proven that, at least some franchises have proven that fans can attend games and do so in a safe and healthy manner. There have been some positive tests here and there throughout the NFL, whether it's fans or staff or players. But as a whole, it's worked out okay as of right now. So if the CFL can figure out how we can have some fans in the stands to get some revenue, maybe a season is salvageable. They're not going to pack the stadiums because provinces and cities aren't going to allow that, given the current COVID-19 rules. So that planning better be in place, or better be solidified or formalized as of right now. They've had a few months to look at this.
I think they've looked at a number of different plans. The problem here, and never will be able to say it out loud, but you talk to different owners, different managers in the league, and this is one of the reasons this whole thing fell apart when it did, is there are 9 different ways of looking. A lot of the owners felt there were 9 different suggestions on how they should return to play, or if should they return to play. And I think one of them was, don't return to play. I know the Tiger Cats were fully committed. They could afford money because of the generosity of their owner. So others didn't. Others wanted to do it this way or that way. And I don't know what all of the details of that are. So there's a bit like a herding cats situation here for Randy, but he doesn't have the power that any of the other commissioners do. All commissioners work for the owners, but they really work for the owners if you're CFL commissioner. That's the history of this. And I think a lot of them feel he hasn't been strong enough. And part of the problems was the communication that came back way a long time ago when they went before the Canadian government. That was a
disaster.
And I think the same thing here. They've got to advise him or help him find a way to do the kinds of things that we're suggesting here, even which is like, hey, here's 4 of the scenarios we're looking at. Like something like that,
Steve,
and then
there was
on stand.
Steve, I saw a number of tweets, and I don't know what the percentage is or who all the staff is who were furloughed at the CFL. I mean, we know there were some, but I saw tweets you guys probably saw them too, that at least one writer for the CFL website and one of their video people, Brody Lawson, that they were let go. To me, that was, I mean, I know money is super tight right now. There is no money. But to get rid of your messengers at a time when you need to keep the message going, to me, seemed like a wrong move. Those were people to me that should have been told, do even more right now. Keep this league front and center as best you can to fill the gap so we're not forgotten. That to me was misunderstanding, I think. I felt how to try and bridge this unfortunate gap that they have.
I think another major element of the go forward plan has to be a restructured CBA. I mean, it just has to be, because the league as it stands right now financially is not going to work in a COVID-19 world, not with, a small percentage of fans maybe being allowed into stadiums across the country. So, the league and the owners have to go to the players to say, we have to work something out. Salaries can't be as high as they are. Maybe we don't have a practice roster. Maybe we don't have an injured list. You get injured, you're done. It sounds unfair, but drastic times call for drastic measures. And the CFL is in a position where they have to make some hard decisions.
Yeah, but Rick, are you going to come up and ruin your body for less money? That's the problem.
No.
Well, some will, for sure.
There's always going to be guys out there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
the problem, Rick, it's a problem. That's exactly why we don't hear anything right now. Because the first thing, which I said off the top, you have to have an agreement with the players. But you also don't know what the money's going to be like, and it's going to take a while. No, I don't think any group of players, especially the new group that's been elected, that have been quite vocal and stronger, I think, in a lot of ways than we've ever seen before. I wouldn't use the word radical, but some people might. And this for them is they're not just going to necessarily roll over on this. This is going to take some real diplomacy here, and they're also probably messing with a lot of their own members if they do the kinds of things we're suggesting here, which is the higher paid player in the league. And
well, in order to
sell tickets.
Yeah, in order to save the league, how radical would it be to say, hey, we're going to have 40-man rosters and everyone makes the league minimum, and whoever wants to play gets to play? That might be the only way to save the league.
Well, it probably won't go that way, but I think the Players Association aren't silly here. I think they would rather have work than no work whatsoever. So whether the season is shortened, whether the rosters are cut, they would rather, because I think they can't be any different than the four of us here right now saying 2 years of no league is gloom and doom for the Canadian Football League and for the 700 or 800 people that it employs in terms of players on the football field. So let's all back up a little bit here. Let's take a shortened season. Hey, if the CPL can do it, if the Canadian Elite Basketball League, and I know those are much smaller league and probably much easier to convince to play a league, there's got to be contingency plans to do this, and they have to be working on this right now. I would be disappointed and crushed if they are not all banging heads right now to make sure on how this is going to happen.
I think they worked on it in the fall.
But mind you here, we have now heard now that the XFL is going to be back, and not next spring, but the spring following. And that's going to take the players away from this league. And I believe the Rock Johnson, he's probably in the mindset right now, I'm going to take a loss, but I'm going to make this work. Right. So I have a feeling, because I thought the XFL this time around, had it not been for the pandemic, I thought they were going through with a fairly efficient season. So they've got to be scared of what's going on around them. And you add in the NFL.
Well, I don't think there's ever going to be a shortage of players. It's what kind of players, like most of the players that come up here aren't known anyways, Bubba. So I don't think there'll ever be an actual shortage numerically of players. Quality of players, whole different story. You're right. A lot of the things we talked about here, they did talk to the Players Association, and we're negotiating with them in the fall. But this is a whole different thing, because now you're looking at a long-term plan. They were still under the old CBA. Don't forget, they were still could have played under the old CBA. This is a whole different thing now. I think they may end up at the very end with what you're saying, because the players eventually may have to come to that point and say, hey, no money, no game. But you're not going to go to that early. You're not going to go to that on wherever we're at now, October 6th or 7th or 8th. You're not doing that. If you're a player, you're going to fight for everything on this, right? So there's not going to be this concrete agreement. That's pie in the sky stuff. I mean, this is labor negotiations. And even if it's tough times, and even if we can see the end game, you don't go to the end game first.
Steve, maybe it's because we're all media guys, but I go back to my point. I'm a big believer in getting your message out and being public and having you as part of the conversation. And when the NFL is playing right now, baseball is almost done, hockey's done, basketball is about to be done. There is a huge opening there for you to at least somehow be part of the conversation again. And I'm not talking about a daily Randy Ambrosie update.
No,
you got to be out there. And football fans are now the ones who are watching sports on TV and are paying attention to sports, because that is the sport that is going. I really think that somehow they've got to figure out a way to somehow re-inject themselves some way, not every day, but some way back into the conversation and get people talking about the CFL. Because if you lose that, look, we talk about that lost generation that was in the 70s and 80s with TV blackouts. If you lose this generation and you get people just out of sight, out of mind completely, you've made your task when you do come back so much more difficult. If you're stuck,
especially in the eastern side of the country.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, one of the problems too, of course, is they were after that new generation. We're actually making some inroads in 3 or 4 different cities, but it was based on what? Social viewing. Where's that going to sit over the next 3 or 4 years, right? Where's that the style of cup that was supposed to change all cups, that was supposed to be that for Hamilton this fall, it's supposed to change all the way it's done in cups. That can't possibly look like that within 12 months. It may look like that, but it won't be the kind of thing. So they're facing a lot of problems here. But yeah, you're right. They got to get out and they got to do something about it and get some discussion going that's meaningful. And I don't know what that discussion is.
I don't
But-
either, but Steve, it's
but
just
Steve-
being out there. It's being somehow involved. It's being part of the discussion. Bubba, sorry, I jumped in. Go ahead.
No, sorry, Steve. Wouldn't you agree that if a TSN or yourself or myself or Scott or Rick, we actually reported that, hey, the CFL are in the midst of meetings right now. Wouldn't that alone give hope?
That's one thing the CFL has to change. Ever since, and for all the good that certain strong owners, new strong ownership have brought to this league, is one thing they've brought is we don't like to come to the public until it's all done. And I get that, because then they got a really good thing that they sell. They've done this on a number of cases.
But that was a different world.
This is not the time for that.
That's a different world.
That's a different world. And that's the time to show a little bit of the inner workings.
Steve, if you've
Now's the time for leaks.
If you've got games on TV every day or 3 times a week or whatever, you don't have to talk about how the sausage is being made because you've got your product in front of everybody. When you don't have a product,
I agree.
make sure people remember the product is out there and available.
Yeah. And
all the league has to do.
The other guy, somebody else controls the message, and that's what's happened to the CFL for the last 8 months. Someone else is controlling the message.
All the league has to do to appease, not maybe appease, but maybe allay some fears is that, listen, we're having monthly virtual calls, all the GMs and owners, and we're talking about 2021. And that's all you got to do. And then have those meetings and plan those, scenarios out. A lot of it is going to go to, COVID regulations and what provinces are allowing, because right now we can't have, outdoor sports or outdoor concerts or whatnot in Ontario, and other provinces have followed suit as well. But, Grey Cup 2021 is just over a year away in Hamilton. What are the odds that is actually going to happen? Is it 10%? Is it 50%? Is it 80%? I don't know. I think right now it's less than 50% the way things are going.
Well, Rick, we got to go. My answer to that would be, I believe that it's going to happen, with a caveat is I don't know what it's going to look like. Steve alluded to it. I don't know what it would look like. And if we're still, and we don't know what it's going to be, if you're still in a position where you can only have 20% of fans, do you do it? I mean, is it worth it at that point? I don't know. But I have to believe that by a year from next month, we're going to be able to get back to some form of normal. I have to believe that the question,
I hope so.
What happens in the lead up to that, which is what we've been talking about here. What happens in the season before that? Could you start in July? We don't know. What do you think? Is the CFL doing just fine? Maybe the 4 of us are wrong. It's happened before.
Once.
Are we wrong? Or is the CFL a little too invisible right now and needing to do something to get back out into the discussion, even if it can't have games, just so it doesn't disappear for a year or 2 and then have to try and climb back? Let us know. Our Twitter handles are on the screen. They'll be up again at the end. We would love to hear from you. Comment, subscribe, hit notifications, get these videos sent to you all the time. We'll talk to you soon.